Welcome, viewers. Moving on to our next panel discussion, Top Trends and E-commerce, moderated by Anza Saqib. Over to you, Anza.
Thank you very much, Saira. If we can kindly, everyone can please switch on their cameras. Right. Just a moment, please. Right, absolutely, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to CXO Global Forum's Digital Summit 2021. The topic for today is top trends and e-commerce. It's very interesting. We've got a lovely panel with us today. But before we go on to introduce the panelists to you, let me again congratulate CXO Global Forum on putting together a brilliant show. And I've been moderating some of the panels. I've been watching other ones, and they've really done a great job. So hats off to Mr. Kamal Masroor and his team. I think all the guests have joined me. Let me just start introducing the panelists. We've got Mr. Salman Sattar. He's the co-founder and CEO of Bagallery. Then we've got Mr. Hussain, co-founder and director of operations at Digital Eggheads. Mr. Aquil Ahmed, he's the COO at Primex Consulting. And Mr. Umar Rana, the founder and CEO at Alchemative. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Let me just start with Mr. Salman Sattar. So I would like to hear your introductory remarks on the topic.
Sure. Thank you for the warm welcome and introduction. No, I think just maybe 1 minute on my introduction. As you've already introduced, I'm managing the Bagallery, which is a fashion and a beauty e-commerce player in Pakistan. We have been operating for last 4 years, and before that, my background is FMCG. My last position was director sales Middle East for a FMCG company, a Dutch dairy company, and based in Dubai. My initial comments on the topic, I think it's one of the key drivers for the growth of the, I would say, economy. Because if you see yesterday also, Prime Minister had a meeting with the PK with their management because they're the biggest player. So there is a lot of focus from the government. There is a lot of engagement from the investors in the sector. So definitely one of the hot topic to discuss. So I'm looking forward for this session. Let me see if I can add some value to the viewers.
Mr. Aquil Ahmed, are you there on the line with us?
I am indeed, yes.
Thank you very much. Morning. I believe you've joined us from London.
Yeah, it's very early over here, but
I know. Thank you. Really appreciate it. You taking out the time. So your introductory remarks on the topic, top trends in e-commerce.
Yeah, look, thank you very much for the opportunity. This is my first time over here with this group. We've been working and operating out of London and Ireland for the last 7 years. The pandemic obviously has been a blessing for us because we kicked off our the IT line of our business in Karachi, Pakistan. Today it's going to mark 2 years of our business in Pakistan. So we are obviously an IT company, but we have been in the logistics and the manufacturing industry. So we support a lot of supply chain e-commerce clients in the UK as well as in the Ireland, and we are now starting to do that in Pakistan. Pakistan is a growth market for us because we have, just like Salman mentioned, there's a lot of opportunities in Pakistan that we are eyeing on, all to do with e-commerce, with logistics, with supply chain. So that's why I'm here, and I'm here to discuss the new trends that we see in that market.
Thank you very much. Safir, I've known you for a while. You are a friend, you have been working in this profession for quite some time, but you are one of those success stories who've actually helped a lot of stores, uh, you know, put their e-commerce shop, online shop forward. So I think it's going to be an interesting discussion, but we'd like to hear a little bit of your introduction as well.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Anza. As you guys know, my name's Safir. I'm basically the co-founder and the director of operations of digital marketing agency run from Karachi. We serve clients internationally. When I was invited for this discussion, I pretty much was very interested for it because, see, we have been working in the industry since the last decade, and we have seen the e-commerce industry grow. We have seen where people started from traditional e-commerce, traditional and a mix of e-commerce, and then they completely came onto the e-commerce world, keeping in mind the pandemic and the COVID situation. And I think this is a good discussion to have because we should be focusing on the connection of the digital agencies and the people who are working on the technology of this e-commerce scenario and the people who are actually running the e-commerce brands. So I think this would be a great discussion to have.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Safir. Now, moving on to Mr. Salman Sattar. Sir, we do know that the pandemic has, accelerated e-commerce in Pakistan tremendously. We've seen a lot of businesses open online shops. But when we talk about the trends here, let's move on to something that's very important, big data. So what exactly do businesses and e-commerce stores have in mind for the future? And especially, I would like to know in the Pakistan context.
I think very, very interesting question. If you talk about big data, data is the new oil, as they say globally, and there's a lot of companies who are now coming into this segment where they're going into the hardcore data, analyzing it. For example, for our company, which is just 4-year-old and not a very big company at this point of time, we have 5 people managing the data. So that tells how important it is for any e-commerce business, because you can study a lot of things. You can analyze the behaviors of the consumers. You know exactly where they're going on these stores, what exactly they're looking for. So of course, data can help really drive a good forecasting, a good supply chain, a good customer service. So to me, data is the core of the e-commerce. And in Pakistan, I think a lot of companies are now realizing it, that how important the data is. Like if you talk about Facebook ads, when you run it, there is, maybe 1,000 lines to study how the algos work. So data is going to play a significant role. I think we still lack the capabilities in this area. Finding data resources is very difficult. I have hired 5 people, and I know how much struggle it was to get a good data engineers and data scientists. Most of them goes to software houses, so it's not easy for the industry to get good data people. And
Do you
I
think it's important
is,
for e-commerce stores to also have in-house data scientists?
very important. It's very important because data has 2 parts. One is, of course, the data security, because if you're not able to control your data, you have seen already few cases in Pakistan where the data breaches has happened, and it has really got companies in trouble. I think 2 weeks back there was something on the bank side also. So definitely one is how you secure your data, and for that I think the best thing is to get the people in house, because if you have people from outside, then the accountability issue is there, responsibility issue is there. It's a third party at the end of the day. Anything happens, they'll just wash their hands off. Whereas when you have internal team, you really know how, and of course it's your data, so you don't want to give it to someone else to manage it. So I think the security and safety side of the data is very important to be in-house. As far as the analytical part of the data is concerned, it can be in-house or it can be outsourced also. But I think if the company is into the areas where data plays a significant role, it's always good to have an in-house team managing the data for you.
Right, sir. Thank you. Mr. Aquil Ahmed, now I've been working in EdTech for quite some time now, and we work a lot with data. And that in itself, evolves into AI capabilities for the future, where you get personalized recommendations. And it's true for any e-commerce store where the children are buying books or watching educational content online. So building on to that, we know that the future of e-commerce will be heavily dictated with artificial intelligence. What is your take on it, and what do you think are the areas in which AI can play a crucial role in e-commerce?
Absolutely. I think there's absolutely no two ways about this. I think AI is the next step in all of this. I just want to pick very quickly the point that Salman actually made. What we are seeing is because we are working a lot with majority of these e-commerce companies, there's a huge reliance on the data sets that we have, and we all know it actually plays a crucial part, not just for providing information, but actually allowing you to use that information to make informed decisions. And this is very important because the next stage from this, once you have this data that we are working on, is more around how do you make use of data to actually predict information. Yeah. So how would
yes,
you?
and sorry to interrupt you, but could you please put on your camera?
Is it on? Sorry, I don't know. Is that right?
Yes. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So it's more about how do you use this information to actually do so, because we're focusing on two things over here in the European industry. One, obviously, the predictive modeling that's actually happening on the e-commerce side, and second is we are actually also using the same data set to bring artificial intelligence within all of this, because it's actually the same algorithms that we are using. I'll give you one example. Last couple of months back, we've just recently we've had a proposal where we've got there's about 24,000 square meters of a big warehouse that we have, which obviously is one of the foods and confectionery business, and they are moving away from. I'm not sure how much you are aware, but there's a very complex operation that runs in a warehouse where you've got your hauliers, you've got your pick operations, you've got your put away operations actually happening. So we had a clear mandate, which is obviously pinning right down from the top CEO level and the chairman, to say that they want to absolutely go to zero human picking and put away operation.
So fully automated.
It's a fully automated warehouse. So we are. This has just been 2 months, and we are now exploring how we could actually bring AI, because there's no other means, there's no other ways we could actually make this possible. So we are looking into these digital robotic picking, packing structure, which obviously has to be deployed on the warehouse. But then if you do all of that, you've got to look, what's the size of your warehouse? What sort of structure do you actually need? Because the AI works on an algorithm and nothing else. So you need to make sure that you've got the right infrastructure. You need to make sure you've got the right capabilities. You need to make sure you've got the right sponsorship from the executive level, and you then have your means and resources to do it. So it is going to be a one-off investment, but obviously it then pays over a period of time, and we do see that coming forward.
If I may take the liberty to sort of build up on something here, I know a lot of people are concerned because a lot of teachers keep asking me that. So when you bring in edtech, does that mean we lose our jobs? Or especially like in, let's say, if you're fully automating factories or e-commerce stores, what happens to sales teams? What is your prediction? Will it be trending that we'll have fully automated, Alexa style assistants as salespeople?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. You lose your jobs. I think you would probably the jobs get more transitioned into a different role. So, for example, I mean, the operational staff that will probably come out, which would not do any picking operation. Obviously, there is no business in the world that will obviously be 100% without human intervention. There will always be human intervention. Where the human intervention actually kicks in is all of the exceptions that get actually produced from the AI operation. And there will be exceptions. You can't have a possibility where there are no exceptions, because it's all algorithm based. And if the algorithm doesn't work one way, it's going to put all those things into the exception.
Right. So let's hold on to that thought. And let's move on to Safir. Safir, so let's move a little from the technical side to the design element. Now, I know a lot of effort goes into the UI UX experience, right? So since you have been working on it, so what are the future trends in design for e-commerce shop?
Okay, so I think when we talk about Pakistani e-commerce landscape, we are on the right track, but there has to be some concepts that need to be built amongst the agencies and the brands. Starting off from the concept of design thinking. It's a common concept that big brands and even medium and small businesses follow. Basically, nowadays, what happens is consumer has the driving steering, right? So what the consumer wants, the business has to kind of tweak its operations accordingly. In terms of the user experience and the user interface, I think the core aspect of this has to be followed on research. Once we have the research of what actually the customer needs, this way we can kind of focus on the on getting results. And because
so when exactly does the research happens, and when does it drive sales?
Yeah. Okay. So first, the concepts of design thinking tell you to first empathize with your target audience. So first we need to understand what the problem they are facing. Let's say if Black Friday sales is coming up and it's in Pakistan, we cannot blindly follow the trends that are being followed internationally. Okay. So we have to see what landscape our audience sits in, what 3G, what e-commerce connectivity issues we are having, what technological problems we are having, and we have to tweak the overall scenario in a way that the customer's needs are satisfied. And once we focus on that and we build on a product and a solution, then I think the whole process becomes so much easier and the results start coming in.
Right. So let's speak about the top trends in design. Let's say color psychology, color palettes. What do you foresee for 2022?
Okay,
what's going to drive the most
I
sales
personally
online?
am a fan of minimalism. So I think the next trend that I'm seeing personally is a clutter-free approach. Because see, if we talk about design, if we talk about businesses, there's a lot of clutter. And if you need to stand out, you need to have something to show, right? And the best way to break the clutter is minimalism for me. This could be a subjective approach, but I think minimalism is the key forward.
Thank you very much. Mr. Salman Sattar. So we know that chatbots are now improving the whole shopping experience, right? How important do you think they will become in the future, let's say next year or 5 years from now in Pakistan? Unmute your mic, sir, please.
Yeah. So I think bots is something which is here to stay for long, and we are seeing that every industry, the bots part is being aggressively used globally. I think the chat box, we're talking the standardization of replies, because when you have people sitting, sometimes you have a lot of people who have very different approach of handling different customers. So that creates a lot of I would say sometimes bad customer experience. And as you keep growing, as the industry keeps maturing, you will have more and more of these issues. So the best way is to have standardization, so that the differentiation between handling the customers goes away, and the quality of, I would say, people sitting on the other side also plays a significant role. So I think these chatbots is very important. We are at a very early stage of this, because as we are developing in how to use AI, because bots will not be very effective if you don't have a good AI technology being used for your platforms or things like that. I think that's where we struggle at this point of time. But going forward, I see a lot of activity happening in this area. A lot of software houses are developing some key, I would say, products which can help to have a better AI-driven robotic approach for the chats. So yeah, it's going to be
Absolutely. So
crucial.
when you talk about like, let's say people who come online on Bagallery and they obviously want to know the price of an item or the delivery mechanism and everything, don't you think it somehow widens the scope of,
Absolutely, because
how many?
just to give you some, we get on Instagram, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, and we have then our website, and then we have some other social media platforms. So we get more than 3,000 queries per day, 3 to 4,000 queries per day.
Wow,
And
that's
these
massive.
and these queries are really different areas. And then of course people track their orders also. So there 4 or 5,000 people approaching you. How many people you're going to have to in your call centers to manage them? Practically, it will become very difficult. And we are going in that direction of building that capability so that we are able to manage those queries and they get the right response. And if you see, I live in Dubai, so over there it's very difficult to call most of the Amazon. You just cannot call. It is all bots who are handling you as a consumer. So if you want to call Amazon, you need most probably 2 3 hours to find the number. So that's and the reason is very clear, because they just cannot handle 20 30,000 calls per day, and the standardization in those calls will be very difficult to maintain. So I think with the growth we are seeing, it is a must to have bots managing this. And the work is happening. I'm not going to say that it's not going to be there. It's going to be there soon. A lot of companies are already doing it. We have also tried some of these softwares and it works nicely, but I think we need to develop a bit more as a country in this area.
Thank you, Mr. Aquil Ahmed. So, are you there with us? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the top trends in the future that I've been reading about and also experienced some of it in America is augmented reality. When you go to IKEA now, you've got you can literally download a table and see whether the dimensions would fit in your living room and so on and so forth. It happens at Nordstrom and Marks and Spencer's, all these places as well. How do you see AR or emerging as a trend in e-commerce in the future?
I think absolutely it's top of the list, and there's if you look at it, it's almost going to grip this industry in very, very quickly in the next 5 years. And the reason for that is that if you pick up an example, just where we were hit with the pandemic last year, right? As if I just get outside IT and get outside of the industry business, as a consumer, yeah, we would always want to go to shop and obviously have a physical touch element to all of this. Yeah, by nature, you can see last year that because of the COVID, because of the pandemic, none of us were actually able to do the physical touch exercise either through shopping or either through any of the physical experiences that we had. And I think that was a true test of realism, because what that actually helped the companies and the industries was that it was a time of test to actually see, will the digital element and the augmented reality piece actually work? And you would have seen quite a lot online that now it's starting to actually become a trend, not only just for the online stores, but these physical stores that you actually see. You can physically, if you put your dimensions in, you could actually try out or test a shirt or an outfit to see if it actually fits you, rather than actually just going into a store. And the reason for that is it's the ongoing number. Everything starts with a problem. All of this is coming because there's actually, as an online consumer and companies, what they're seeing is there's a higher number of a sales ratio when customers are buying things, especially on the retail side, because you're buying online. Give you an example. If you're buying an outfit online and you are not sure about the size, you'll probably buy a medium size and you'll probably buy a large size, so that when it comes, you know one of them is actually going to fit you, and the other ones you could actually do a very swift return. What companies have seen in the last few years is that although the sales have actually jumped, but equally the return side of the things have also gone up. That's why this has actually introduced the augmented reality, so you could actually fit yourself digitally into all of this, and actually it reduces the return rate down. Another similar example, we've also worked quite a lot with another supplier and supported Emirates. I don't know if you've had a chance, but what you can now see is when you're starting to book a flight on Emirates, you can actually experience the class that you are actually booking in by physically, virtually going into all of this. So it's actually moving away from the retail industry, and it's actually going into your normal day-to-day life. So you can actually experience all of this digitally.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Now, Safir, we saw, one of the biggest news of this year with the announcement of the metaverse. And, we speak about AR, but that also, gives us a lot of hope for how ads will look different. You have been one of the people that have been experimenting a lot with different kind of digital advertising mediums. So what is your take on augmented reality and the future of ads for e-commerce?
Okay, so what we use internally here is the term forced digitalization. So because no one was expecting when the pandemic came that they'll have to move to the digital side of things so quickly. So the adaptability was amazing, in my personal opinion. And using augmented reality, yes, it's like when you're forced to sit at home and you're forced to get the experience of the actual brand. Let's say I'm going to switch my specs or glasses, and I need to see how I look. So I don't need to be physically present in the store to get that experience. So I think keeping all these in mind, in our personal experience since the last 2 years or 1 year, development requests for augmented reality-based e-commerce stores have increased exponentially. People come to us. In fact, local brands here in Pakistan, they come to us. Of course, they have a minimal idea of how much it would cost, but still, they come to us and they ask us for, "Sir, aap is tarike ka koi solution de dein." So this is something that's evolving over here. Besides this, I think the ads and the digital strategies are also being tweaked a lot. The platforms are being matured, especially after the announcement of the metaverse by Facebook. The strategies are tweaking. The platforms are maturing. They're programmatic advertising. There's the terms performance marketing and growth hacking. So I think we are in the right direction. There's a lot to achieve internationally, globally. If you talk about the number of sales, number of e-commerce sales globally, it's around USD $5 trillion of sales annually.
Absolutely.
And it's expected to reach around $6.4 or $7 million annually. So I think there's a lot of potential, and
right, but
still have to do a lot.
Yeah, we're talking about the future here with the metaverse and everything, and I'm sure you're well equipped. But let's talk about the here and now. Let's talk about trends like Black Friday, which is now here. We've seen a lot of e-commerce stores do Blessed Friday or 11/11 and so on and so forth. Do you see more similar trends emerging in the future of e-commerce in Pakistan?
I think in my personal experience, the trends come from abroad. They're brought to Pakistan, they're tried on, and then once we see that they're not working as it is, then they're tweaked to our own experiences, keeping in mind the audience in Pakistan. So yes, I think the Q4 of the year, it's very important for the e-commerce landscape over here. We know clients, we know people who actually plan their sales, and they plan their products, and they start their product research from January or February for this fourth quarter. So I think this is very important. And I think this impacts a lot on the e-commerce and retail businesses.
Right. Mr. Salman Sattar, now we know that Bagallery has emerged as a very successful online store, you're catering to a lot of different, segments of the audience, women and fashion and retail, all sorts of things. But we also see that one of the key USPs of Bagallery is discounts, right? Massive discounts. How do you actually manage to stay afloat with all the massive discounts that you have? What's the secret recipe here?
Firstly, we have White Friday going on. So today is actually Black Friday or Blessed Friday or White Friday. So if you had not planned your shopping, I think you should do that. Just visit the site and you'll find really some of the crazy stuff which you will not find in any day of the year. I can
Really, are
tell
there
you for
any
that.
special discounts for CXO Global?
We can look into that for sure. But yeah, I think see, one of the thing which is globally now happening is the discounting. And it is not only in Pakistan. It is a trend in Europe. It's a trend in the Middle East. It's a trend in US. And this is mostly not only driven from the e-commerce, but the modern trade. Fortunately, Pakistan didn't have a huge modern trade business like Carrefour's or the Walmarts of the world. So Pakistan was a bit away from this kind of strategy of discounting products, hardcore. Whereas globally, it has been happening. If I give you numbers, 72% of the retail sales happen on discounts. 72% of the retail sales globally happens on discount. Only 28% of the retail sales happens on the actual prices. So it's a global trend. People have become smarter. People don't just buy, especially with online coming in. When they buy from Bagallery, they just don't buy from Bagallery. They have 4 other websites open. They analyze who have a good delivery, who has a good pricing, who has a good quality, who has a good packaging. So they do a lot of analysis, and of course, one of the key thing is the price. Price drives a lot of efficiency because people are smart, and there is a lot of pressure on your pocket if your inflations are so high. So of course, you're gonna see for the alternatives best prices, or and the private label is another thing which is forcing the brands to go into the discounts, because if you have a private label which is as good as, I would say, Zara, and it is 1/4 of the price or 1/5 of the price, if you're smart, you're going to say, okay, let me try this. If I need 5 products, let me take 4 of them and one from Zara, most probably. If you talk about the fastest growing brand in the world, which is Shein, and being a female, most probably you will know that brand. It's the fastest growing brand, and it's an app which has been downloaded the most month on month from the last 6 months. There is no app being downloaded more than Shein in the world. But what are they doing? They're just selling the products which are, copying the product from all the good brands and selling it 1/5 or 1/6 of the prices. And they're calling it fast fashion because you will use it. And the duration of the products is decreasing. So discounts is I would say a basic part of the e-commerce business. It's there. It's going to stay. A lot of companies have tried to avoid it, but they have mostly failed. So I would suggest not to try it, but being smart, be smart how to manage it. How we do it, of course, we have 2 ways to do it. One is we get the brand support. We take a lot of support from the brands to give those discounts. But also at the same time, we have a lot of brands which are not available in Pakistan. So we only buy when they go on discount. So when we buy from globally, like for example, today is White Friday or Black Friday. So a lot of products are going to be on discount. So we stock up on discount so that we can offer on discount to a consumer. I'm talking for those brands which are not available in Pakistan. So we try that we give the maximum to the consumers, because that's our objective at the end of the day. If you want to acquire consumers for long run, you have to give them good service, but also do things which are beneficial for them. So we're trying to be smart in our supply chain, in our buying patterns. But at the same time, brands do understand that by the way, this is the cheapest way of customer acquisition. If you go hardcore towards the lot of advertising and all those things without having good discounts, your ads doesn't perform. So you burn a lot, but you still don't get the customer. So one of the best ways, or I will not say best ways, but the cheapest way to acquire new customers is discounts, and we are as a country in that phase where acquisition is the name of the game. So this is what we're trying to do.
That is informative, to say the least. Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Aquil Ahmed, so moving on, one of the other trends that people have seen emerge and will see more of in the future is different payment methods and billing aggregators, payment gateways integrated into the e-commerce shop. What do you predict are the top trends in context of the South Asian market?
Yeah, this is unfortunately, if you compare this with the rest of the world, I think this is one area. I'm just particularly talking about Pakistan over here. That and it's not not in a bad way, but generally speaking, this is something where Pakistan needs to grip very quickly. The governments need to make sure that this infrastructure is actually in place, because we are very much used to, like you see over here. I mean, most probably 5 years, you go back 5 years, you would actually be seeing that an alternative method of payment was PayPal on e-commerce. Gradually, we've seen Apple Pay has now come into place for Apple devices, etc. And there's so many other methods that have now started to come into play. But this is all possible because the gateway and the infrastructure is actually in place, number one, and the infrastructure that is in place is encrypted and is actually secure. So that's the two very important things which obviously Pakistan needs to very, very quickly, or the government in Pakistan needs to very, very quickly make this possible. Because at the end of the day, what you are doing over here is not just providing an alternative method, it's actually making the life of consumer as easy as possible. We know not nearly half actually, I think about, I was reading a survey the other day, and I was looking at it, and I think it said 72% of an average Pakistani actually has got a mobile phone. And you go one level down, underneath that, it said that 65% of those actually hold an active internet connection, which means that they have got the means, they have got the devices to actually do a transaction, run their banking, run their payments. It's just that the government needs to facilitate this, and the more quicker they facilitate this, the more quickly you're going to see this trend going up in Pakistan for contactless payments.
I agree, and the numbers do speak volumes about the fact that more than 70% of all e-commerce happens through mobile devices and iPads and so on and so forth. Now, moving on, Safir, we do know that Facebook and Instagram, etc., constantly changing their algorithms. As we've become smarter, so have the machines and the algorithms. So the interesting thing to note here is when you're talking in terms of digital marketing now, and conversion rate optimization, we do see that Facebook has now started rewarding video and motion-based creatives that have the audience hooked on. Same goes for YouTube. How do you, when you're advising businesses or partnering up with clients, maintain that balance between creativity, conversions, and then hooking the audience?
Okay, so I think it's all about giving the audience what they want, as I said earlier. It's better to think from the audience's perspective. What we do over here is we follow a thumb rule. I think Salman would agree to it. Basically, in terms of creatives or in terms of artworks or in terms of your advertisements that are presented on the social media or the digital platforms, you need to focus on creatives that actually look and that actually speak to the customer in a way that the person is forced to stop his thumb. Because there's this common option of scrolling the feed, whether it's Instagram or it's Facebook for the users. They just start scrolling their thumb, and once you as a brand or you as an agency are able to stop their thumb on a specific advertisement, that's your win. Okay. So once they are actually, once you as a brand are actually able to stop them on the specific advertisement, you have got their attention. And then it all boils down to what you are trying to speak. You have to focus on the right content to the right audience and the right time. These are the three right rules that we follow over here. And keeping this in mind, and we've through our experiences, we've learned that even if we skip any one of the right rules, the conversion rates, they drop drastically. So it has to be the right audience, the right time, and the right content. So this is the key point that every brand and every agency needs to follow.
Perfectly summed up. So unfortunately, we're running out of time for today's panel discussion, and I would request Mr. Salman Sattar to sort of sum up today's discussion and give us his final comments.
No, thank you for the opportunity again. I think it was a lovely discussion with a lot of experience on the table from Mr. Aquil and Safir. So thank you guys for adding a lot of value to the session to me also. In terms of my closing remarks, I think this is an industry which has changed, which can change the fate of the economy of the country. It's that big, it's that serious. Whether we see companies like Amazon, who are bigger than the economies of many countries. So we need to join hands to make sure that we go on the right path. Because a lot of things we have seen works globally, but doesn't work in Pakistan because a lot of fundamental issues, challenges, government not being
So
very
with all
supportive.
due respect, I think you know what works because someone from the audience just posted a link and, if I may read it, it says Pakistan's Bagallery raises $900,000 for its beauty and fashion e-commerce platform. So like I said, I've been asking you the secret recipe.
That was last year. Hopefully, you will get a good news in the next 15 days with the new funding round being already closed. We're just waiting for the announcement. So most probably you will get a good news.
So let's hear some words of inspiration for the audience.
No, I wish I could inspire people, but I can, of course, tell that hard work is very important, and dedication and passion for certain things. I always had passion for this. Actually, this startup was my wife's startup. She was the founder and she's the one who did it. And the reason I pushed her to do this because she was shopping too much. So my credit cards were, burning out all the time. So I said, why don't you make some money out of it? So that's how the whole thing started. Alhamdulillah, we're doing quite good. But I think e-commerce is something which can add a lot of value to the country. The number of jobs this area is creating, whether we talk about Daraz, whether we talk about Airlift, whether we talk about some of the other good companies. We have hired 100 people in just 3.5 years. We're going to add another 100 people in the next 6 months. So I believe that this is something which can really help the economy. The government is supportive. I hope the safety situation of the country remains as it, because if we are a safe country, we have 220 million people, which nobody can avoid in the world. A lot of investors are eyeing on Pakistan. Pakistan is becoming a hot cake. I hope the safety situation will continue as is, and then we'll see for the next 3 to 5 years. It's a lot of investments going to come in. We need to be supportive. I think when any investor wants to invest, the first thing he is concerned is my money safe in Pakistan. Am I able to take out my money back if I need to? So those are 2-3 questions which we need really the government to support as a nation. And then there's no stopping us. I can tell you that Pakistan is the hot cake right now in the investors' mind. A lot of investors from Europe, US, Middle East are eyeing on Pakistan. We also are hearing some big news on some of the other startups of funding. We've already got $400 million funding in this year almost, and still 2 months to go. So most probably we'll cross $500 million of funding this year, which will be the ever highest. And if this continues like this, you will see another 5-6 billion coming in, and at least 10 unicorns being developed in the next 8 to 10 years. So let's hope for the best. And we're here to support.
Thank you very much. You've been great as a panelist today. Thank you. Moving on, Mr. Aquil Ahmed. So any recommendations that you may have for the policymakers here?
Look, I think thanks very much. It was great and lovely, obviously, to talk with people in the industry. I think I'm looking at the next 5 years over here, and I think my ask to the policymakers is that e-commerce, obviously, when you run the trade, there's a cost associated with each and everything that obviously Salman, Safir are doing, yeah, because from wherever the product actually starts, the product needs to be shipped from there, the product needs to be stored, and then obviously from that storage, it gets then distributed to retail customers. My ask for the government of Pakistan is, and I'm sure this is coming, I can see it, it's already there, is that we need to take maximum advantage of the Gwadar port, because that is the one single area where we need to have these large warehouse facilities developed, so that all of this business, where businesses like Salman has got and businesses like Safir's got, they have got these local depots where they can obviously store their products and then obviously sell them widely and cheaply into different areas, either regionally or internationally. It is happening. It is happening with a fair amount of speed, but obviously there are still challenges. There is still a bit of hesitation from the foreigners coming in, but I just hope gradually, inshallah, that actually picks up the pace and happens. One more thing to add is, I think one thing which we all also need to consider, and the government needs to consider, is that with all of this happening, where does that actually leave us with the carbon footprint that we have? Because surely that is actually going to play a lot, and in fact, it may actually become a very heavy industry regulation in the way we operate, in the way we do business, and that's where I think the IT and the digital element will probably play more of a part.
Thank you very much. Mr. Safir Hussain.
Okay, so I think as discussed earlier, we have achieved a lot in let's say the past 5 years in terms of e-commerce, the trends. But I think there's a lot to achieve in terms of the technology, the adaptations, the people in the West, they've started focusing on voice-based search, and we still have a lot to achieve in that domain. When it comes to data, the AI, the recommendation systems, it's all about making the lives of your consumers easier and coming out of the clutter and presenting yourself as a unique brand. I think the fintech domain has to be worked on pretty much. The state bank needs to have policies through which international payment gateways are actually able to come over here. The inclusion matters in this case a lot. There are local payment gateways, there are local payment channels, especially run by the banks. They are operating, but I think overall user experience gets compromised when you're not able to provide hosted checkout solutions, and the overall concept of one-page checkout completely gets off if you're not providing one-page hosted solutions. So I think the government, with the support of the government, the brands, us, the agencies, the logistic companies, the banks, if we work together, I think we can achieve a lot more.
Thank you very much, Safir, and it's been enlightening to hear from all you esteemed panelists today, and we hope to see many more advances in e-commerce and retail experience online in Pakistan in the future. Thank you very much, and all the best, CXO.